Here we go. This is all about our craft club. It's month number 6 and it's all about embossing and the embossing techniques that you can do. Let's have a little look here as to what you are going to be getting, because we've got, of course, our index card, but on the back it tells you everything that you're going to be getting within month number 6. Now that is great to see, however, you want to see the 52 pieces all in one. So let's do that. Let's dive straight in and show you what you are going to be getting. Now this is jam-packed full, as you would expect. Still comes in with your plastic wallet, of course, but what we are going to be getting is our booklet. Now our booklet here is filled with different techniques that you can be doing when it comes to your embossing folders that you're getting within month number 6. Easy to follow, you've got the words and you've got the pictures as well. Now when it comes inside, as this is all about embossing, what are you going to be getting? You're going to be getting loads of embossing folders. Now you're going to be getting your 4x6, this is a Chevron design, 2D embossing folder. You're also going to be getting a 6x6 Snowfall embossing folder, that's also 2D. Now not only are you going to be getting those embossing folders, what you're also going to be getting is these 3D embossing folders. Now you're going to be getting a 5.5 by 5.5 macro floral. Now this is really zoned in on that floral petals, that's included. You're also then going to be getting a 4x6, this one giving you a Damask embossing folder, 3D. Then what you're also going to be getting, even more embossing folders. Now you're going to be getting a couple of additional 3D embossing folders. You're going to be getting this studded leather, absolutely exquisite. Now this is 4x6, and also when it comes to 4x6, you're going to get this floral design too. That is all of the embossing folders that you're getting, loads of them. But then what you're also going to be getting is all of the key essentials for you to get creative with. Now you're going to get some watercolor cardstock panels. You're going to get 9 in total. You're going to get 5x7, 4x6, and 6x6, so you can do all your water techniques before you do your embossing. You're then going to be getting your colour cardstock. Now this is your core colour cardstock. Once you start to tear it or sand it, it's got a white core. Now you have got 6 colours, but you're going to get 2 of each. Purples, greens, reds, navies, you've got the Bordeaux, you've also then got your blue as well. That's inside. Then what you're also going to be getting is cardstock panels. So you can emboss straight into your cardstock panels, 9 in total. You're going to get 5x7, 4x6, and also 6x6, 3 of each of these ones. Then what you're also going to be getting is vellum, because you can emboss vellum when it comes to the embossing folders. You're also going to be getting 9 of each. You're also going to get 6x6, 4x6, 5x7, and you're going to get 3 of each as well. That comes included. Then what you're also going to be getting is a sanding block. Now this is going to enable you to actually sand back the embossed detail within that core cardstock if you wish to do that. That's included. We've also given you a little dust-it sheet. Now I say little, this is such a sizable piece that you're getting. It's going to last you such a long time, and it's a dust-it because once you start to sand off your cardstock layer from your embossing, you're going to dust it all off. The dust is then going to stick onto this dust-it sheet. That's included. And then when it comes to finishing off your cards and projects, you're going to be getting your 4 sentiment stamps as well. Just a note, thank you, send in love, and congratulations. Now everything here combined are going to enable you to make the most beautiful cards and even projects. You can do your smaller cards, you can do your larger cards, but if you want to start to then emboss straight in to your card stock, you can do that. If you want to do it straight into your card blanks, you can do that. You can do your water effect when it comes to your water reactive ink pads or your pigment ink pads. You can then go over the embossed detail with all of your inks. You might want to do it with your gilding flakes. You can absolutely do that. All of that comes contained within your brand new craft club. It is month number 6. It's all about embossing, and it's all about embossing techniques. Now when it comes to our craft club, this has been month number 6 and it's all about embossing and embossing techniques. You can make a gorgeous looking card such as this one. Very, very simple and straightforward, and it's straight onto a card blank. So let's get started and let's show you how you can make a lovely looking card. So what we're going to do is I'm going to bring in my card blank. Now this one at the moment, it is 4x6 in size. And what I've done is I've brought in this 3D embossing folder from the Craft Club month 6. This is the studded leather and it is that incredible 4x6 size. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go in with my folder. So I've opened it up. Now when it comes to your embossing folder, you have a deboss side on one side and you have an emboss side on the opposite side. Now both ways look absolutely beautiful. But what I'm going to do is I want the detail to be pushing upwards. So I know that this side here, this is my emboss side. So when I run it through, the embossed detail within my cardstock or my card front is going to be facing upwards. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go in with my card blank and I'm going to open it up. And then I'm going to go in and I'm just going to sit that in the actual folder here. Now my card blank, it is 4x6. The actual folder is just a little bit smaller than that, and that is there to serve a purpose. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to position that one in so my card blank is sitting inside my studded leather embossing folder. All that I'm going to do is I'm just going to make sure it's lined up at the side so it's nice and straight, and then I'm just going to sit that there for a second. What I'm then going to do is I'm going to bring in my plates. Now for a 3D embossing folder for your Gemini, you're going to need your base cutting plate, you're going to need your magnetic shim, and then you're also going to need your frosted shim as well. So what we're going to do within this one here is I'm just going to lift my folder up with my cardstock and I'm going to go in. Now because of the width of this, it would absolutely fit no problem, as you can see, within the width of your junior plates. However, just to ensure I've got a perfect emboss, I'm going to go in lengthwise. And then what we're going to do is we're going to do our magnetic, and then we're going to go in with our frosted shim. So then what I'm going to do is I'm just going to feed that up to my Gemini 2. So we're just going to then feed that in, let that go in. Now if you're using the OG Gemini, your white Gemini, still the same plate configuration. So all that I'm then going to do is bring this one out, and then we're going to find that we've got the most beautiful 3D emboss design when it comes to the card front. Now what I am going to do is I'm going to come in with my guillotine because I just want to trim away the edges here. You'll maybe just be able to see, because the actual design of the folder is slightly smaller than the 4x6 card blank, although that looks nice and it's framing it, I don't want those edges there. I want them to be taken away. So all that I'm going to do is go in with my guillotine, and then I'm just going to line that one up, and I'm just going to cut away at the actual edge. I'm going to follow that all the way around, top, bottom, and the side. Now what I've got and I'm left with is a full edge-to-edge embossed design. Now you can leave it like that if you so wish and pop little gems or pearls in the middle, but what I am going to do is I'm going to bring in some of our Harmony water reactive inks. Now with my card blank is actually done from our white multi-purpose, so it's not watercolour card. However, you can still do a little bit of water technique without it affecting the cardstock. So all that I'm going to do to start with is let's go in with Lemon Tonic, and I'm also going to go in with Parakeet. So I'm just going to start to layer up my blending tools with some of the colour. So all that I'm going to do to start with is I'm going to go in with the Lemon Tonic and I'm going to go direct. Now I'm keeping my blending tool relatively flat, and then what I'm going to do is I'm just going to go into sections. So we're going to go into sections, and what's going to happen is because we're going in flat with our blending tool, it's picking up all that raised detail, but the inner deboss detail is going to stay completely white because the sponge can't get to that deboss effect. So we're just going to go in, keeping it flat, and it doesn't matter whether you're using the square blending tool or the circle blending tool, keeping it flat is going to give you that really strong colour on the top level, and then it's going to keep it nice and white in that back level. So this time I'm going to go in with the Parakeet, taking some of that excess off, and then we're just going to blend that into areas. So what I've done with the lemon tonic is I've gone into kind of like 3 random areas, and then within the leftover white space, what I'm going to do is go in with the parakeet. And I'm not overly concerned at the moment about blending them together. We'll do that in a moment. All that I want to do at the moment is get these 2 colours down and cover my card blank. So I'm just going to go in and add more colour. If you're concerned about going over the edge, what you can just do is fold it back in half, or maybe go in with a scrap piece of cardstock or stencil tape. That's entirely up to you. But we're just going to go in and we're just going to enhance all of that detail there. I'm going to go back in with my lemon tonic here, and then let's start to add a wee bit more. And then we're going to go back into the 3 places that I've started with. And then what I'm going to do is I'm just going to start to rub off some of that excess ink off my glass mat. And then I'm just going to start to overlay with my blending tool and start to blend that in. So we're just going to blend it all the way in so that my 2 colours are going to then seamlessly meet perfectly and create kind of like that ombre effect. So we're just going to work that in. What you can also do, depending on your blending tool, if you find you've got a lot of excess colour on, you can simply go into a nice, crisp, clean, new blending tool with no colour and then start to do it that way. So it's entirely up to yourself, but at least you've got that option. Then what we're going to do, this is where I was saying, although it's not watercolour cards, you can still do a little bit of water techniques. So with that there, what we can do is we're going to go in with our water spritzer. Now this has just got a little bit of water, and then you can either go direct, or what I like to do is spritz into my hand and then flick. So I'm just doing a little bit more, and then what we're going to do is we're just going to let that sit for a minute or 2, well not quite a minute or 2, but a few seconds. And because I've used our Harmony Water Reactive ink, what's going to happen is it's going to create what's called a faux bleaching effect. Now I don't want to leave it too long because once again it's a white multi-purpose, not a watercolour card, but you can still use a little bit of water onto this cardstock. So all that I'm going to do for a second is let's take all that excess colour off my glass mat so we're nice and clean. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to go in with a nice clean piece of kitchen roll, and then I'm just going to dab that into my card front. I'm going to lift that up, and then what we're starting to get is that faux bleached effect that you can see there. It looks super cool. The longer you leave it, the more colour is going to be lifted. And then what I'm going to do is usually at home I would leave that to dry just naturally at room temperature, but let's just speed it up ever so slightly. And I'm just going to use my heat tool. This isn't essential because we've not put a lot of colour down and we've not put a lot of water down, but it's just a nice little helping hand for me to show you in quick speed how it can form together. If you leave it to dry at room temperature, it will dry relatively flat. If you use a heat tool, you will start to get a little bit of curvature. So if I lift that up from above, you can see that you've got that little bit of curvature there. And if I go in up above there, you can see just here. So what I'm then just going to do is I'm just going to manipulate that ever so slightly so that we've got that flatness back. And then there is our card front. So then what we can do is let's go in with a little strip of white cardstock. Now this is from our white card that you've got within Craft Club month number 6, and then I'm going to go in with congratulations. You've got 4 sentiment stamps, and I'm going to keep this one very simple by going onto my stamping platform. I'm going to use my Noir Black. This is alcohol proof ink pad, but it doesn't matter. What I mean by that is I'm not going to be adding any alcohol colour to this. I'm simply just want to get that strong black congratulations font. So we're just going to stamp that one on, remove that one, and there's our beautiful sentiment there. Then using some of the navy blue core cardstock within Craft Club month 6, I've just done a little matting layer. So we're going to come in here. Let's bring that in, and then also using that same navy, I've just cut a little of the tabs that we can see here. And then all that I'm going to do is I'm going to go in, and then I'm just going to add one there. I've done a smaller one as well within here. And then that one can go just into here. And then I'm going to go in with that congratulations. I've already got foam pads onto the back there. And then all that I'm going to do is press that into place. I'm just going to manipulate that a little bit more. And then there we go. There is a really bold, striking, colourful card blank that we have then embossed using our embossing folder, which is a 3D studded leather from Craft Club, month number 6, which is all about embossing and embossing techniques. Now, when it comes to the embossing folders, which is what the Craft Club is all about this month, being month number 6, one of the techniques that you can do is sanding back your cardstock. Now, I'm going to be taking the most gorgeous 3D embossing folder. We're going to sand that with our sanding block that comes included. So let's get started, because the very first thing that we need to do is we need to bring in our cardstock. So I'm going in for that gorgeous kind of Bordeaux kind of feel when it comes to the card. And then what I'm going to do is I'm then going to come in with the gorgeous embossing folder. So this is the Damask one. Now it is 5x7, and what I have done is I've cut my cardstock to just a little bit thinner and smaller than the folder. And then I'm just going to close that. So then what we're going to do, because it's a 3D embossing folder, being the Damask, I'm going to go in with my base cutting plate, my magnetic, and my frosted shim. So I'm just going to pop my folder into place. We're then going to go in with the magnetic and then the frosted shim. We're going to go up into our Gemini 2, and we're just going to let that do its thing. If you're using the OG Gemini, the white Gemini, same plate configuration. And of course you can do this when it comes to your Gemini Junior. These will all work through other branded die cutting machines as well, size dependent. You just need to check out the plate configuration. So then what we can do is then we can lift off our design. Now when it comes to the embossing folders, you've got what I would class as the positive, being the embossed side, which is gorgeous. But then you've also got the debossed side, which is equally gorgeous. So you can use whichever one that you want. But we are going to be sanding, so therefore we want the embossed side. So this is where all the detail is standing proud and high. We're going to bring in our sanding block. Now you get the sanding block included as well when it comes to Craft Club month 6. And then you're going to find all the way around, you've got that really fine sanding blocked edge. The other thing that I'm going to do as well is I'm going to come in with our sheet as well. So this is going to lift off any of the excess cardstock fibres. So all that I'm going to do to start with is I'm going to keep it relatively flat, and I do it lightly, and then I start to build up the strength within the hand that I'm pressing down. And then I'll do a little corner to start with that you can kind of see where I'm going with this. So already you can start to see we're taking some of the layer of colour off of our cardstock. So all that I'm going to do is I'm going to go a little bit more heavier handed, and I'm going to go in circular motions. So we're just going to go in circular motions, and what's going to happen is, because this is a 3D embossing folder, it's not going to sand off the layer off of every single detailed element from the Damask. It's only going to go and sand the very, very top part of the design. Because a 3D embossing folder, you've got different depth. You can have anything from 2 layers, 3 layers, 4 layers, sometimes even 5 layers when it comes to the detail. So if I stop there for a second, once again, you can see where we're going with. Don't worry about all of this excess that's coming off. This is where your little mat will come into effect. So all that we're then going to do is we're just going to carry on going. So we're just going to work all the way around. We're just going to go circular motions. I'm saying circular motions because for me, that's very free and flowing when it comes to getting that sanded effect. You can, if you want to, go back at sides to sides, but I just like that circular motion. So what you can also do within some of the smaller areas, if you wanted to really get into all of these really fine embossed detailed parts, you can go in with the corner of your sanding block. But I like to have it just so that the very top layer of the 3D emboss is what's sanded back. So I'm going to go a little bit more heavier handed once again, and then we're just going to take even more off. And then as we get to that bottom, what we're going to do is we're going to start to leave it here. So work our way round, and then what we can then see, don't worry if they do catch any parts because we're away to trim this in a minute. So all that I need to do now is clean away all this excess. So let's just take that, let's wipe it back side to side, and then let's also do the cardstock as well. So you're going to go over the cardstock. That's going to attract any of those tiny dust particles from the sanding block. And then we're just going to pick all of that one up, making sure it's got everything, all last little bits. And then once again, we can just pick any remaining dust particle away. And then what we can then start to do is just trim that to the size that we need. So what I have done is I've got a card blank here. Now my card blank, it is 5 by 7. I've gone in with a piece of that navy blue that is in your Craft Club month 6, and I've cut that to 4 3/4 by 6 3/4. What I've also then done is just taken a piece of the white card panels from the actual Craft Club 2, and I have trimmed my one, and this one I've trimmed to just over 4.5 inches by 6.5 inches. So what I'm then going to do with this one is I'm going to come in with my guillotine, and I'm going to cut this one to 4.5 by 6.5. So if you don't have your larger guillotine, if you've only got a small one, what I like to do is I'll go in with my scissors and use my glass mat as a helping aid. So I'm just going to come along the bottom there, and I just need to trim at 6.5. So I've just put a tiny little cut notch in at the 6.5, come back in with my guillotine and then cut. And then I've got that to the exact size that I want. I always like my layer to be bigger than what I actually want it to be so I can trim it afterwards. So then what we've then got is all of our mats and layers. That's given me a really nice fine white matte layer. So let's go in with our tape runner here. So I'm going to go in with my tape runner, and I'm just going to work my way all the way around, edge to edge. You can use your own adhesive of choice, that's completely up to you. But of course with our tape runner, you've got that real strong strength, and what it'll also do is it will adhere all of the layer, even although it's embossed and you've got multiple embossed layers, it's still going to stick to that cardstock perfectly. We're then going to carry on going with our mats and layers. All these layers, these colours, remember, the navy and the white, as well as that beautiful Bordeaux that we've just embossed, is all included within your month number 6. So let's press that one into place, and then let's come back in with our card blank. We're just going to add our tape to the back here, keeping it very, very simple. And that's the thing about your embossing, with your embossing folders. You can keep your cards and projects really simple, but boy, it looks spectacular. So we can set that there for a second. I'm going to go in with a piece of white cardstock. This is the white panel cardstock that comes included. And then I'm going to take one of the sentiments. So let's do Send and Love. I'm going to use my Noir Black alcohol-proof ink pad. And then we're just going to layer this one up with our ink. So let's tap all of our ink on. We're then just going to go and we're going to hover into place. Now I've got my card panel a little bit bigger than I need, and then I'll trim afterwards. So let's press that in. Let's remove that. We've got Send and Love. The only difference that I've done here is matte and layered that onto a piece of the excess navy cardstock from my base layer. Remember, the navy comes included within month number 6. And then the other thing that I've done using excess pieces from the Craft Club is I've just cut little strips. So for this one, what we can then do is we can go in with the navy blue. Now the navy blue, you will find the actual measurements for this one, it is 5 by 1.5 inches. My white layer, it's 5 inches, but it's just a little bit bigger or a little bit wider. So then therefore what will happen is we are going to get a lovely white layer, top and bottom, but it meets at the edges. Then for this one, what we can do, let's bring in some foam pads. So we're going to add that on with a little bit of height. So this we're going to take off. We're going to come back in with our card blank, and then I'm going to go in. You can go wherever you want. Let's come not quite halfway but just a little bit up. We've cut a little strip with a little V just at the side there. Once again, we're just going to go in with our tape. I'm then going to come in here. Now I'm going to pop the little tails right to the edge there. And then what we can do is bring in Send in Love. Let's come in with another foam pad. Let's add that to the back. And then all that we're going to do is we're just going to come and meet that into the edge there, into the side. And then there we go. How beautiful, but simple, yet so, so effective is that sand and back technique when it comes to your embossing folders. And that one has been done from our Craft Club month number 6, which is all about embossing and our embossing techniques. With our Craft Club, this of course being month number 6, and it's all about our embossing and embossing techniques. We're going to be doing this beautiful card. Now this one is actually double embossed. So we have ran our cardstock through 2 embossing folders. So let's get started and show you how you can create a beautiful card such as this one here. Now what we are going to use for this one is our 6x6 2D Snowfall embossing folder. We're also then going to be using our 4x6 3D Floral embossing folder. Now what I'm going to do to start with is let's go in with a piece of that bright blue cardstock from, of course, Craft Club month number 6. And I've already cut this to 6x6. So what we're going to do is we're going to pop our cardstock inside our folder here, and then we're just going to close it. Now this is a 2D embossing folder, so therefore what you do need is your base cutting plate and your additional cutting plate. So we've got 2 of these together. So what we're going to do is we're going to go in with our Snowfall first, and we're just going to layer that one up. We're going to put our plates together, and then we're going to run that one through our Gemini. So we're going to be doing that 2D element first of all, being the 6x6. Now you will have a slight element of running it through once again, but the second folder is going to slightly deboss what you've just done, but not completely. It's still going to look spectacular. So all that we're then going to do is we're going to lift off our folder, and there is our 2D emboss. Now it's a little bit harder to see, but you can just see that snowfall just fluttering away all the way down. So we don't need our 6x6 folder now. What we do need is we need our 3D embossing folder. Now what we're going to do with this one is, because our snowfall, this is then sitting proud, so all of the snowfall is sitting high. What I'm then going to do is we're just going to go in, so I can feel that this side of the folder is raised upwards. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to go in, and then I'm just going to position mine into place there. So all that I'm going to do is get them into that part of my pre-embossed design that I feel happy with. And then this time we're going to go in with our plates once again. But this is a 3D embossing folder now, so therefore it's our base cut and plate, and then it is our magnetic shim, and then our frosted shim. So all that we're then going to do now is we're just going to then feed that up to our Gemini. So we're going to let that do its thing. So you're going to have the snowfall at the back, but then what you're going to have is that really proud floral at the front. So then if we lift this up, then let's take that one away. What you can then see is you've still got some of that beautiful snowfall all the way in that backdrop, but then what you're also going to get is you're going to get all that beautiful 3D embossing folder. So moving all these bits out of the way here, then all that I've done is following along from the edges of that 4x6 folder. Using my guillotine, I've just chopped it. So I've just chopped that. Now the size specifically is 3 3/4 by just over 5.5 inches. And then what we can then see is start to see that design coming into effect. However, what we want to do is we want to make that stand out a little bit more. So I'm going to go in with our Midnight. So this is our Midnight Water Reactive, and I'm going to go in with our blending tool. Now for this one, all that I'm going to do is just start to ink it up. So we're going to ink up with my blending tool. I'm going to take some of that excess off, and then what I'm going to do is I'm just going to come all the way around the edges to start with. So I'm just coming around the edges, dabbing onto my ink pad, taking excess off, and then just carrying all the way around. And then what we're going to do is we're then going to move into the middle. So once again, layer up your blending tool, take the excess off. Now keeping your cardstock flat, keeping the blending tool flat, what we're then going to do is we're then just going to roll round and round and round. So what that's then going to do is that's going to pick up all of that embossed detail. It's also going to pick up some of that snowfall as well, which is then being pushed through into the petals. So what I'm then going to do as well is I'm going to come around selective parts of the petals. So we've got some depth going all the way around. We're doing our own kind of shadowing, so to speak, when it comes to the petals. So work our way in. We're just going to come all the way around. What we're then going to do is come into this foliage. If you find it easier using the small circle blending tool, you can absolutely do that. For me personally, I have a better control with the larger square blending tools. And then once again, I'm just going to go a little bit more heavier handed around the edges here of our cardstock, picking up the edge, but also picking up some of that snowfall. And although it's snowfall, it could easily be raindrops as well if you wanted it to be. And then there we go. We've then got that beautiful double emboss design. So that was our 6x6 snowfall, and then it was our 4x6 3D floral. All we need to do now is a few mats and layers. So I've gone in with some white cardstock. Now this white cardstock is from my own stash. So before we go any further, let's just give myself a little bit of a wipe so that we don't get any of that ink onto my card blank. So let's take that one off. We're then going to go in with our tape runner. So I'm going to go in with the tape runner, edge to edge, all the way around onto the white card. So this white card is a little matte and layer, and it is the white cardstock from Craft Club month number 6. We're just going to press that in. Now you can use the navy from Craft Club 6, or what I have just done is use some of my own black cardstock, because I know all of us have got black card within our stash. So for this one, all that I'm going to do is work my way round with my tape runner, and then that one is then going to go into place. Now my mats and layers aren't at a 1/4 inch increment like I usually do. As you can see, they're very, very thin, just thin enough just to pack a punch, but it draws the eye into that double embossed inked backdrop. And then we're just going to press that in so it's nice and solid. And then on the back of this one, let's add some of our foam pads. So I'm just using some of my larger ones here. These ones, they are 3mm in depth for anyone that wants to know. But you could use the shallower ones if you want, or of course, you could keep it completely flat. So we're going to set that to the side for a second, and then we're going to go in with a 5x7 card blank here. And I've gone in with another panel of the white cardstock from the Craft Club month 6, and I've cut this one to 4 3/4 by 6 3/4. We're going to mat and layer that one. Now I would recommend, when it comes to any of the layers that you do with the embossing folder, add a few mats and layers, because I feel that it really enhances your embossing folder work. So any cards or projects that you do or make when it comes to embossing folders, add a mat and layer or two, and then it's really just going to enhance what you've done. So we're going to go into there. So that was another piece of black from my own stash, and that can go into place here. Press that one in. The only additional thing that I've done is I've taken the congratulations stamp and I've done some white embossing with a white embossing powder in a translucent clear ink pad. So all that I can do is take the backing off here. So if I take all of these ones off, you can keep it completely flat if you want to. If you're posting and you're worried about postage cost, then keep it all flat. But by adding some foam pads and depth, it really brings it to life. Take the backing off of here when it comes to the foam pads. I'm going to overhang that ever so slightly to the bottom right hand corner. Let's press that in. No gems, no pearls, no ribbons, no embellishments, no nothing extra. We're going to keep it as it is. And you've got the most beautiful, stunning, but elegant double embossed design when it comes to our Craft Club. It is month number 6. It is embossing, and it's all about embossing techniques. Now when it comes to our craft club, this being month number 6 and it's all about embossing, one of the embossing techniques that we're going to be doing is this one. Now this is actually doing something a little bit different, and we're actually using some paper tissue. So we need to get started. So to do that, we're going to bring in our embossing folder. So we're going to be using our 4x6 2D Chevron embossing folder. What I'm also going to do is bring in some paper tissue. Now what I've got here is I've got couple of strips here. Now we've got 2 sections that we've got here, it's a doubler, and I've got 2 of them here. And what I've also done is I've got a couple of single squares. So it doesn't matter if it's patterned, if it's texture, don't worry about that. What I also need to bring in is a water spritzer too. So let's go in, and then I'm going to go in and I'm going to open it up. And then I'm going to go in with my first layer here. So we're going to go in with my first layer, and then what I am going to do is just a very light spritz. And then what I'm going to do is I'm just going to fold up that bottom half so that I'm covering the full design. What I'm then going to do is I'm going to go in with that single layer there. So as we can see, I'm kind of then just fulfilling that 4x6 platform. What I'm going to do is another little spritz, and then I'm going to repeat that. So let's do that once again. So I'm going to pop that one on. I'm going to do a light little spritz. I'm going to fold that one up. And then I'm going to go in with my last one here. So we've got a few layers in total. And then I'm just going to spritz that once again with water. So then what we're going to do is we're then going to go in, we're going to close that when it comes to our folder, and we're going to bring in our plates. Now it is 2D, so therefore it's our base cut and plate, and then it is also our additional cut and plate. Because we've spritzed with some water, you might get a little bit of seepage. So all that I'm going to do is go in with some kitchen roll or blue roll or your kitchen towel, just to make sure that you've got some there so that you can catch any excess water. So I'm just going to clean and wipe away that excess water on my glass mat, and then anything that's damp around the edge, I'm just going to then lift that with my kitchen roll. Take that away. Let's go in then with our layers. So we've got our base layer, and then we've got our top layer. So what I'm then going to do is I'm just going to then feed that one up into my Gemini. Now make sure it's a light spritz in each time. You don't want to saturate it, because 1, the technique won't work, and 2, you don't want any of that excess water coming out into your Gemini. So it's a very, very light spritz in. So then what we're going to do is we're going to lift, and then what you're then left with, what looks like a recycled paper embossed layer. It looks absolutely spectacular. So all that we're then going to do is we're going to move all of that out of the way. And then before we start to dry it off, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go in with a little bit of water onto my glass mat. And I'm just going to take a little bit onto my glass mat, and then I'm going to go in with some fuchsia water reactive. So I'm going to dab that onto my glass mat as well, not into the little puddle that I've done, separate. I'm going to pick that up. I'm going to bring in more water. If you need to bring in more water, you can do. And then all that I'm going to do is I'm then just going to come along and then flick. Now I'm doing this before I fully dry all this layer, because the layer of the kitchen paper is still slightly damp. So therefore it's really going to hold that fuchsia. So then all that I need to do is come along. I'm just going to give my glass mat a little bit of a wipe down when it comes to that colour. What I'm going to do is I'm going to actually, let's go in with a wee bit more. I want to intensify that. I want to make that a little bit deeper in areas. So once again, I'm just going to go in with my water and paintbrush. Let's then pick that one up, and then let's add a lot more. So I'm just using the back of my finger to tap that against. If you find that you have some issues with your finger, if it's something that you find it really difficult to do, just use the back of a pen or something else just to tap against. And then we're just going to pick up some more. And then what we're going to do at this stage, we're going to dry that off. So I'm going to come along, and then let's take all of this off here. So we're just going to then take all that excess colour off, and then we're going to come in with our heat tool. So you can leave this to dry at room temperature, or you can go in, as I say, with your heat tool and start to heat set it. So all that I'm going to do is get that started. So I'm going to go lightly, edge to edge, just so that we can start to dry off the layers. So we're just going to work our way around. We are going to be trimming it once it's fully dried, so don't worry about the edges. But we just want to then heat set all these layers so it's nice, strong and sturdy. But also we're wanting to heat set the water reactive fuchsia as well. And we want to make sure that it is fully dry because we're going to do a little bit of alcohol colouring over the top. So let's just work our way around. And then what I'm wanting to do is I want to do the opposite side as well. Because we're heat setting it with our heat tool, your cardstock can start to bend and buckle ever so slightly. So by flipping and flopping each side, you will get a little bit of condensation. So if that's the case, then just keep wiping as you go. And then once we are at a point where we're happy enough, we're just going to flip that again. We're just going to heat that. Flip it back and forwards. But you're only needing to do this if you're going to use your heat tool. If you're going to leave it at room temperature, in a lukewarm room, then you can be about half an hour, 45 minutes, and then you can come back and then carry on. So then what we're going to do is we're then going to take that excess off once again. Now I've got a piece of black cardstock from my own stash that I've cut to 3 by 5. So I was just wanting to double check that measurement because what I'm going to do is we're going to trim that to just a little bit smaller than the 6 by 3. So what I'm then going to do is then let's just take, now because you've got your tissue paper, sometimes with the layers, it will catch at times because essentially it's giving you that recycled card layer and it's giving it that effect. So I'm just wanting to trim away the edges here. And then what I'm going to do is come in just shy of the 3 inches and then cut, and then just shy of the 5 inches and then cut. And then I'm going to line that one up to make sure that I've got that where I want it, which I do, perfect. So take away all this excess bits, any of little bit of fibres that are just left over, you can either leave that and give it that rustic feel, or you're just going to go in with your scissors and trim them away. So what we can then do is let's go in with one of our tri-blends. Now I'm going to go in with the gold yellow blend, and I'm going to go in with the mid blend. And then where we've got the chevron, what I'm going to do is very, very quickly is go in and colour. Now I'm not being precise, but what's happening is because this is kitchen or paper tissue, it's really going to start to suck up that ink and disperse outwards. So you don't need to worry about being exact, you just need to get a few layers down, and then that's then going to fulfill the chevron emboss detail. So we're just going to essentially, as you can see, scribble. So we're just going to go edge to edge. This is being that mid-tone of your gold yellow blend. So work our way in and then just colour. You can do this with any of your aqua pens or sparkle pens if you want to, but it is a nice effect and it's a nice combination going in with your water-based, water reactive, and then your alcohol-based tri-blends. So we're just going to keep on going, edge to edge. We are going to have a sentiment that's going to then cover partial element of this back layer. So what I am just going to do is, so that I know that I don't need to then, of course, waste time colouring parts that I don't need to, I'm just going to come along at the bottom here and start to do a little bit of colour in here. So edge to edge, follow that chevron, sketch it with that mid-tone or whichever colour you choose to use. You're then going to have that backdrop of the fuchsia, but then you're going to have that real intense gold yellow. So before I carry on, this is going to be my sentiment, so all that I need to do is maybe just a couple more. So we're just going to colour, edge to edge, and then probably what I'll do is this one here. So as you can see, where that sentiment's going to cover, there's no point spending that time colouring. and wasting your ink because you're not going to see it. So let's go into there. Happy enough with that. So all we need to do is just assemble this card now. So let's go in with our layer. I'm going to go in with our black layer. I'm going to add my tape runner. Now do be careful with this part because it is of course tissue paper. You just don't want all of these layers to catch. If you find that's going to happen, what to do is just go in with your wet glue instead. So you've got the choice. I'm just going to go in with my tacky glue here, and then we're just going to add that to the back. So we're just going to do a light layer around the edge. That one can then go onto that black layer here. Once we've got that into position, all that we need to do is move that in, move, and then press, take away any excess. And then I'm going in with a 4x6 card blank. I've taken a piece of the red from the Craft Club at 3 3/4 by 5 3/4. All we're going to do is mat and layer that onto a piece of the black into here. That black is just from my own stash. That can then go onto my card blank into here. And then we're just going to take our sentiment that we have already stamped out, Send in Love, and that's onto a piece of that white panel cardstock that you get within the collection of the monthly Craft Club. We're then going to pop that one on, and then what we can do for this one, that can go flat onto here, but this top layer that we've just embossed and coloured, we can then take some of our foam pads, add a little bit of height by taking these ones off onto our layer here. Once you've got that where you want it to be, take your sentiment, pop that into the middle, press that in, and then there we go. We've done our embossing onto our paper tissue, where we've layered up the paper tissue, we've spritzed with some water, we've ran it through our embossing folder, we've then come along and we've done a little bit of inking with Harmony Water Reactive, a little bit of colouring with our tri-blend alcohol pens, and that's just another way in which you can be using your Craft Club. It's month number 6 and it is all about embossing and our embossing techniques.